Welcome to my allotment diary for the end of May, start of June, which is halfway through the year. In a couple of weeks it'll be the anniversary of starting this allotment plot, and therefore I'm commencing this upload with a plot tour taken on the 31st of May. The tour starts at the northern end of the plot with the first narrow bed, which contains the seed onions sown last year, given up as a failed task, and because they were there I planted them in this bed with little hope of any success. Bed 1 is this season's legumes and bean bed with just one single row of Kelvin and Wonder peas. The bed is ready for parity work scheduled for this week. Moving across to the second narrow bed, showing my fig bush sporting this year's figs. And in the corners my thornless blackberries. Back across to the fruit bed with its abundance of fruits. A punnet has already been harvested, made into a compote and served with ice cream. Delicious. Strawberries, Cambridge favourite, nearing maturity. Half a punnet harvested before the critters eat into them. Raised bed 2, brassicas, they're doing well. 3 have already been harvested as thinnings, and the centres of the plants are now firming up. Swinging left, 4th narrow bed, everlasting strawberries, not progressing as well as the Cambridge favourites, but they are late producing plants, so we shall see. On to the currant fruit cage, doing well, will be reaching readiness soon. Contains blueberries and red and white currants. Raised bed 3, designated for leeks, which are ready for planting, and then preparing the bed scheduled for this week. Raised bed 4, root crops, 2 rows of carrots and 2 rows of beetroot, all doing well. On to bed 5, spring planted onions. It's early days yet to form any opinion, but fingers crossed. Here we have bed 6 with potatoes in buckets, all doing well, including those cheap potatoes from Paradise Park. This bed is lying fallow, but if it needs must, and I require an extra bed, buckets and bags can be removed to give extra space. Least said about bed 7 the better. It's probably where my toad lives, and the weeds don't affect the rhubarb anyway. Well, that's my tale and I'm sticking to it. Raised bed 8. The main strawberry bed is now over 3 years old, so for this bed it will be replaced. Therefore, after harvesting, runners will be taken. Parents of the original plants were purchased 10 years ago. Raised bed 9 is a second brassica bed, all prepared and ready. Plants would have been ready, but when it rained last Tuesday, they were in the polytunnel and I forgot to water them, and they suffered, but they'll be okay now. Raised bed 10 is the autumn planted onions, which so far are doing okay, with the bulbs just starting to swell. Raised bed 11, this year's salad bar, with a number of cos lettuce coming up for harvest and ready to take my young tomato plants and a couple of dwarf cucumbers. Raised bed 12 is, as always, my runner bean bed, now putting on growth, and should be doing okay. Up on the step onto the higher level to see the dog kennel. A quick look into the dog kennel to see if anyone's there, but no, it's vacant today. Along to raised bed 13, only half prepared at this end, which is scheduled for preparation and the planting of my celeriac, which I wait impatiently in the polytunnel. And at the other end of the bed, 13, the broad beans, which at present are clear of the black fly identified 2 weeks ago, and pods are just starting to form. Finally, raised bed 14, the newest bed to be prepared and ready to take the sweet corn, which is hardening off under the fleece covering of the salad bar. But what have I achieved this week? Well, the weather has remained warm and we need rain. Some came on Tuesday, but had little effect on the dryness of the ground. Therefore, the daily routine is still watering and weeding. With just as much importance is the clearing of dead or dying leaves from around the plants, as they send a signal to slugs that dinner is ready. Not all plastic is bad. I know no good alternative to EnviroMesh. I believe it creates a mini climate under its surface, gives protection to certain pests, not mice or rats. And the main problem with plastic is the control of what you do with it when it becomes redundant. A selling point for no-dig is the absence of weeds. Not exactly correct. There is a definite reduction of weeds in the bed, and they do come out easier, and some are blown seeds which take hold, but there is definitely less of them. The principal enemy is bindweed. Digging certainly increases their presence, and a rotavator increases them significantly. Digging chops them up, and no matter how carefully bits of weed are left in the ground, rotavating is gardening suicide, chopping the weed with gay abandon with no chance of any control. What confuses the gardener with this food-devouring plant is the belief, which I was one, that the long white stems which are pulled up is a single plant with its roots a long way down. That they are a long way down is true, but these white strands are collected to a thick horizontal root resembling a length of black hosepipe. A number of bindweed leaves on the surface could or not be connected to the same hosepipe. To dig out this hosepipe defeats the object of no dig. The one I dug out was at least 2 foot down. The advice I am following is that of Charles Dowding, which is slipping a fork down the side of the bindweed, pulling it back, which then breaks the stem, and gently pulling the white strand gently out to the surface. The strand left in the ground will grow again, and when it appears, again the process is repeated, until the parent root gives up and either dies or it finds a patch of ground where it's allowed to flourish. To reduce bindweed to a manageable proportion takes time, at least 3 years, so patience is required. I know the black hosepipe parent root is under the paths and the ground outside my boundary, and there is nothing I can do to eradicate it, and using chemicals will affect my toad population, which is a definite no-no. Following on from last week, I found a suitable pot and some ericaceous compost at home, and as promised, proceeded to repot one of the blueberry plants. The second plant also requires repotting, but I shall wait until the berries have ripened before I replace this one. This is an interesting discovery. Gaudy looking caterpillars savaging a weed I'd left growing in raised bed 7. I'd let this weed to grow to help me identify it on the internet. Another task I had scheduled for this week was preparation of bed 3 and to plant my leeks. Having prepped the leek bed, and because it needed doing, I stepped over the path and trimmed the parsley, which was beginning to go to seed. I mentioned in the plot tour that my brassicas for bed 9 required some TLC, which are now showing signs of perking up, and one of my cabbages was harvested for today's dinner. The Swiss chard also was running to seed, and again, as promised, was duly cut right back to ground level. It may grow back again. If not, no worries. It's added some extra variation to some good meals. Leeks were planted using a hole prodding tool borrowed from a fellow plot holder. Yesterday my wife and I had visited the supermarket, who were selling leeks 3 in a pack for £1.50. Now I've planted here 108 leeks, which now have a £54 potential. Now that's not bad return against the allotment rate. Grass was hindering me in opening the gates to the polytunnel, so it required a quick haircut. If my sweet corn is to be planted out next week, prepping bed 14 will have to be actioned, especially with the forecast of much needed rain next week. But I had the dog with me, and into the prep the neighbouring farmer had set his rook scarers to go off at 25-minute intervals, which upset the dog. The kennel did its job as soon as the first shot rang out. He was off like a rocket, straight into the kennel. I could not record the event as I would need 2 cameras running over a 25-minute period, and my free shot time is 5 minutes. Not an easy task to set it up and fake, but we had a rest and a cup of coffee, and he obliged by making an entrance. The intention was to sow some French beans, but the dog made it hard to video, as his nervous reaction to the shots was to keep intertwining through my legs. Seeds were sown, after which we returned to the security of home. Hope you have enjoyed this edition of my diary enough to award a thumbs up, and please don't forget to press the bell for further uploads. Or if not already done so, subscribe. But till next week, take care and bye.